Thank you for joining the live telephone town hall conference for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join.
Yep.
If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. Thank you for joining this live telephone town hall event for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join. If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone pad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. For those on Zoom, you can type your question into the chat pane. Thank you. Thank you for joining this live telephone town hall event for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join. If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. If you are joining on Zoom, please type your question into the chat pane. Thank you for joining this live telephone town hall event for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join. If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. If you are joining by Zoom, please type your question into the chat pane. Thank you for joining this live telephone town hall event for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join. If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. If you are calling in on Zoom, please type your question into the chat pane. Thank you for joining this live telephone town hall event for Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. We will begin the town hall shortly as we wait for others to join. If you have any questions during today's event, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and we will connect you with one of our staffers to document your question. If you are joining us on Zoom, please type your question into the chat pane.
Congratulations, you've been selected by the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization to be heard. We want to hear from you about our plans and talk about the future of transportation in Broward region. Tonight, we have the District Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation, the County Administrator from Broward County, and our Board Chair, Commissioner from Miramar. We're fortunate to live here in Broward. It's a great place to live and work, and South Florida is a wonderful place. But we have challenges. We have great population growth and some extreme weather events that have really caused strain in our transportation system. But we also have great opportunities, from new technologies to partnerships to address the things that are facing our community. The Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization has developed the Route to 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It stresses strategic investment in establishing all sorts of new transportation in the next 5 to 10 years. And it lays out the vision for the next 15 to 25 years. The Broward Metropolitan Transportation Plan itself has over $11 billion across 7 programs and prioritizes projects to enhance safety, accessibility, and efficiency. Collaborative partnerships actually are part of implementation of the Route to 2050. This whole collaboration with our partners, including 31 cities, Broward County, the Florida Department of Transportation, and the South Florida Transportation Authority, also known as Tri-Rail, we really work together to target funding that basically moves us for new projects and incentives to address regional transportation need and congestion. The plan encompasses over 103 new projects and supports over 400 ongoing projects used to improve transportation infrastructure in our region. Participants tonight are encouraged to visit route2050.org or learn more about the Broward MPO's transportation plan, or also known as a Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And tonight I turn it over to Joe Yesbeck.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Yesbeck. I'm Senior Vice President at TY Lin, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's meeting. Before we get started, let's do a poll question. Okay, this first poll question. Before this event, were you aware of the Broward MPO? Press 1 for yes and 2 for no. If you're on Zoom, please select the appropriate answer on the screen. So the question is, before the event, were you aware of the Broward MPO? Press 1 for yes and 2 for no. So continuing on, once again, welcome to the Broward MPO's Teletown Hall meeting. A few orientation items before we get started tonight. If at any time you would like to ask a question, please press 0 on your phone's keypad. You will be transferred to a member of the staff who will take down your question. If you've joined us via Zoom, please type your question in the Q&A panel on the screen. We're going to do our best to take all of your questions during the next hour, but if we're unable to get to yours, you will be able to leave your question as a voicemail, and a response to your question or comment will be added to the Broward MPO website when we post this video of the event. The MPO's website is browardmpo.org. Tonight, as part of the Route to 2050 Transportation Plan, we'll look at transportation investment strategies for the next 5 to 10 years and the vision for the next 15 to 25 years. And as Greg mentioned, hear from our transportation partners who will implement the vision and answer your questions. Joining me this evening are Steve Braun, District Secretary for Florida DOT District 4, Monica Sapero, County Administrator here at Broward County, and Commissioner Yvette Colburn with the City of Miramar and also the MPO Board Chair. So the theme of the Town Hall discussion this evening is partnerships to advance the future of Broward's transportation. So Secretary Braun, why don't we start with you and provide an overview of your agency's plans and programs to move people and goods throughout Broward County and the region.
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Steve Braun, the District 4 Secretary. District 4 covers 5 counties in Southeast Florida, Broward, Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River. I sincerely appreciate the partnership with Broward MPO, Broward County, local municipalities as we do our role. We'll play our role delivering transportation improvement projects. As far as plans, the department gets very involved in these type of forums in our partnership with the Broward MPO. Looking at those long-range needs. So this is really an opportunity this evening for the community to provide input on the Broward's long-range planning process, their MTP. But it's also a great time because the Florida Department of Transportation is working on our statewide plan, a 2055 plan called the FTP, the Florida Transportation Plan. So that's actually underway now. And a lot of the themes we'll hear this evening focused on safety, resiliency, economic development and supply chain, technology, and workforce development are themes within that statewide plan, which also really sets the tone from a policy and from a strategic planning perspective for the entire state. So that's the Florida Transportation Plan, which the local MPO plans really complement that plan. So it's important for the community to get engaged in this MPO plan to ensure that it's consistent with some of those statewide initiatives. We have other plans really focused on key corridors or key programs as well. For example, the strategic intermodal system. Those are interregional transportation facilities, intermodal, the interstate system, as well as access to our ports and airports on that strategic plan. More recently, the Moving Florida Forward plan or initiative is focused on key investments statewide, 20 critical projects around the state. So we do our part really from a statewide planning perspective, and then obviously getting very involved, at the local level as well, working with our partners. I'd be remiss to not mention the strategic highway safety plan, which is a statewide plan for transportation safety improvements, which is a critical need across the state. And I know a lot of the local municipalities and MPO also focus on safety as well.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Madam Administrator, how about we turn to you to talk about Broward County's plans?
Thank you, Joe, and Steve, thank you. My name's Monica Sapero, County Administrator, so thank you for having me and on this important discussion, and certainly welcome to everyone that's joined in for this important conversation. So, Broward County, we depend very much on public input, and we have a lot of strategic partnerships, of course, very close with the state, with the FDOT, and of course our municipalities and our partners there. MPO is right there with us every step of the way. And as such, when we are developing, these initiatives and certain plans that we've got for our agency's future, our county agency, we rely heavily on our partnerships and these conversations, because we can't do these things alone. If we did, we'd all epically fail. We needed to really collaborate and have a lot of conversation about how all of our initiatives are, kind of in lockstep. So they are complementing each other and actually making a big impact. So one of the big ones that we have right now is a multi-billion-dollar initiative and plan. It's actually now a program. We used to call it a Primo plan. It's now a Primo program. And this is the Premium Mobility program. And this is going to span over the course of many years, but it will improve the connectivity and now allow all of us for a multimodal type of transportation and connectivity throughout our entire county and the region in South Florida. And it'll leverage the transportation surtax funds to implement, a high capacity premium transit network. And that will forever improve the landscape here in Broward County.
Great. Thank you. And last but not least, Commissioner Colburn, maybe talk a bit about the Broward MPO's plans.
Absolutely. First of all, I am Commissioner Yvette Colburn from the wonderful city of Miramar. I was elected in 2013, and from that point on, I have been a member of the MPO board, and recently became chair of the MPO board. For MPO, it's really been great to have the opportunity to sit with, the other 30 municipalities that we serve. And we have great staff here on the MPO. You've already heard from our executive director, Greg. And we are currently working on a long-range plan. And this is a plan that we do every 5 years, and it goes out 25 years. And it identifies, we're working to identify the needs right now. So we're looking and working with our partners to see what are the regional needs, what needs to be in that plan. Because once you've got to be in that plan for it to be part of the network system. So we are working with that. And at the same time, at MPO, we are doing analysis to see what is it, what data do we have, where the deficiencies are, so that we can address that in our upcoming plan. We want to make sure that we address our roadways, our highways, the needs for pedestrians. What do they need? What do the cyclists need? So all of that has to be taken into consideration and put into our long-term plan. So that's what we're currently working on now.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So before we move on to other questions, it's time for a second poll question from our listeners. So there's going to be 4 choices. The question is, where in Broward County do you live? So press 1 if you live east of I-95. Press 2 if it's between University Drive and I-95. Press 3 if it's west of University Drive. And press 4 if you're not a resident of Broward County. Again, if you're on Zoom, you'll see the choices on the screen. Please select the appropriate answer. So once again, you press 1 if you're east of I-95, 2 between University Drive and I-95, 3 for west of University Drive, and 4 if you're not a resident of Broward County. We'd also like to once again remind participants that Greg mentioned this in his opening remarks to please visit www.routeto2050.org to learn more about the Broward MPO's Metropolitan Transportation Plan and projects identified in your community. So let's Steve, let me turn to you first. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest stressors and opportunities that we face as a region in meeting transportation goals?
Excellent question. All right. I think about this every day. I think a lot of stressors. I'll probably start my laundry list, and then maybe as a panel, we'll talk about some of the opportunities from those stressors. So I mentioned safety first, right? Just safety on our transportation network, I think, is critical. We continue to see unfortunate incidents out there. Some of them, right, preventable through engineering and outreach, and others really just are tragic within themselves. But every single incident resulting in a fatality or serious injury, I think is a challenge for all of us as industry professionals and as residents in the community to really focus on safety. I think the other thing we see a lot of, and we see it every day, we hear numbers out there, and Greg probably has these numbers, 29% population increase by the horizon year of this plan, 2050. 1,000 people per day visit in or move in here. So that just adds really congestion, more trips on our transportation network. So I think that's a stressor. And then, we're keeping an eye on the Atlantic storm events, really just those type of weather events become a stressor for our industry as well. So, I think the opportunities there, and I think we'll see the theme this evening, is the partnerships and the collaboration to try address all of those elements, right? From a safety collaboration, from the department collaborating with law enforcement and educators. The storm events, close working relationship with the county, the municipalities on our emergency response. Resiliency as well. I mean, that's another stressor and a buzzword. Just looking for those opportunities there. So I think those stressors, as long as we keep them on the forefront and understand that as an industry, we really have to collaborate on how to address some of those.
So I'll jump in here, Steve. I think you took right from my notes, because I have here safety, weather, resiliency. So at least we're all thinking the same way, right? So, those are absolutely some of the stressors that we're seeing at the county level as well. The county's really focused on, how do we move and house people who make Broward County their home, and certainly the visitors that traverse through our county. The millions that come, by the month to visit and use our resources that we have here. So, on the safety side, we have recently partnered with the MPO on a Safe Streets and Roads for All action plan, and the county was a partner in that, and we were providing some matching dollars, and we've got $5 million in federal grant money for that. So it is something that, you put your money where your mouth is, and we're trying to make an impact and where the folks can really see that. And so that's definitely an area. We also use the weather incidences that we see, the weather events, the extreme weather events that we see, and we all feel it. When it rains a lot, roads and our backyards get flooded. And so how do we look at that from a planning perspective, and when we're looking at making improvements on roadways and throughout the county, making sure that resiliency is at the top of that list, and so that we're planning appropriately, so that we're making and putting these infrastructure and projects in place that we're prepared for the future and what that might look like. So those are a couple of, examples and some things that we're looking at, but we use those stressors as some opportunities to address these issues in the project design phase and the use of new technologies.
Right.
Well, I would also add, for MPO and also from a city perspective as well, safety is definitely one of the most important things. And that's why at the MPO, we have our target 0 fatalities. We have been identified as in the top 10 of most dangerous place to walk and ride a bicycle. So we definitely want to make sure that that's an emphasis for us to really reduce our number of fatalities on the roadway when it comes to pedestrian. That is definitely number one, safety. But we are also looking at electric vehicles. There is more and more interest in electric vehicles, and we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support that. That is definitely one of the things that we are seeing and we're hearing out there that's important for us.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I want to remind the listeners once again on how to submit a question for tonight's event. If you're listening on the phone, please press 0 on your phone's keypad, and you'll be transferred to a member of the staff who will take down your question. And if you've joined us via Zoom, please type your question in the Q&A panel on the screen.
So if I may, right, just jump in and we alluded to it, but I think to the audience, right, over the last 5 years, supply chain really has become a household term that I think industry professionals, 5 years ago, we knew what that meant from a transportation perspective. How do you plan for that? But it's a household term for everyone, right? There's people in the audience probably waiting for an Amazon package this evening or so forth. So, I think that's another area of opportunity for us in these partnerships, in these collaborations, as we look to the long-term vision for the county transportation network, making sure the ports, the airports, the supply chain, warehouses have access to a network that functions and meets their needs, because in turn, right, that's the community need at large.
Right.
I think that's something I'm sure we'll hear from the audience.
Yeah, it's a good point, Steve. For forever, transportation was always about moving people and goods. And no one, I guess in the last 5 years, people started to better appreciate the goods part of that phrase. So maybe another question, and I'll start off, Monica, with you, is, what do you hear from the public? What's their input? How, what are they saying regarding transportation and mobility and the needs here in the community?
So, we hear all kinds of things, including, they don't like to sit in traffic. They don't like to wait for trains. They don't, there's a lot of, other stressors that we hear from folks and tolls and just different, things on how do you get to work? How do you do it quickly, safely, efficiently? And so when we're putting together plans and systems, we have to think about how do we move people, not necessarily just like Steve said, yeah, we're all waiting for an Amazon package, but they also need to get to school, to work, and do it in a way that's, economical and safe. So, we try to look at how do you connect those dots? And sometimes, the public transit option, folks might not necessarily be the first thing they think of, but we're finding more efficient ways to use public transport and to offer that to the public in a way that is appealing. We have new electric buses. We are getting, fast, rapid transit services so that you can, bypass, the sitting traffic sitting alongside of you. We're looking at, nice clean buses with Wi-Fi. People can work, people can sit there without the stress of sitting in traffic, So we're looking at the way we can offer transportation in a way that is very appealing, And we're looking at micro transit. We're being flexible. We're looking at, what is it that is going to be attractive to people? So we ask a lot of questions, we listen, we try to be adaptive, we implement pilot programs, and certainly in the 30-year transportation surtax plan, and Primo, we've got all of those things packaged, and really connecting the economic engines of the county to be able to move people quickly and easily, very smoothly.
Commissioner Colburn, as an elected official, what do you hear? What do you hear from your constituents?
Monica really spelled it out pretty good. Residents want to get to where from point A to point B, and they want to do it quickly. They don't want any traffic congestion, and that's really what they're looking for. And they do want other options as well. So it is up to us to try to work on that congestion. Many times we don't have all day congestions. It's really during peak hours when you see that. But even during peak hours, it means a lot to our residents. They don't want to have to wait 20, 30 minutes in traffic. And certainly if they know it was just 20 minutes one day, it's when they get to, when you have an accident or something, that one day that just kind of ruins their day because now they're there 40 minutes or an hour. That's the kind of thing that bothers our residents. But they do want options. They want to make sure that they can ride their bikes, but that it's safe to do so. So they really want safe bike lanes. So those are the things that I'm hearing from our residents. In our city, we have a community shuttle program that gives them an additional option. And we are actually reworking on that now to kind of include some new areas that have been developed since the last time that we set that route. But we want to continue to make sure we have different types of options. That's what our residents are looking for.
Great, thank you. One more time, let me just remind our listeners that if you have a question to ask our panel, please, if you're on the phone, please press 0 and you'll be transferred to a staffer. If you're on Zoom, please type your question in the Q&A panel. Next question is, and Monica, this looks like this might be best for you. So George asks, if we solve the transportation problem, we solve the affordable housing problem and workforce housing. Do all the transportation agencies fully support the affordable housing plan and Primo plan endorsed by the county commission? So maybe start it off by just kind of some framework and then kind of turn it over to the other panelists.
You said that was George?
That was George.
So George, thanks for the question. I'll tell you, I would love to say yes, wholeheartedly. Everyone loves the plan. Everyone has the same objectives. The reality is everyone recognizes that these are all, the reality, it's the reality we live in. And then these are all the most important things. It's where do we live and how do we get to work and school? And so those two things are the ones that, drain our pocketbooks the most as individuals. And as a government leader, those are the responsibilities that we have to try to address. So the county, I'll just sit for a quick second here, has spent a lot of its general fund dollars to pour into affordable housing alternatives. And we're seeing more and more our municipal partners recognizing that it's not just upon the county. It's also a municipal issue that they're seeing in their hometowns, and they're stepping up as well. And that's important to do so. When you couple that with how do you link that with the future of our transportation network? So that's when you get into the conversation of linking those corridors, those most traveled corridors. And so you study those, and we ask a lot of our municipal partners, the state, DOT and MPO, how do we maximize the impact of these transportation improvements that we're putting in place? Well, we think about that's where we need to have the ease of access for people. And we need to make it as easy as possible for this infrastructure to go into place. So that's where the conversations with our municipal partners in the state come into place, because we all have that same objective, is to put affordable housing in those corridors, because that will be helpful to people to use public transit and the multimodal efforts that we've got in place. And I think Broward County is really in a good position to basically effectively manage the growth of the county, and certainly with the support of robust multimodal transportation network.
Right.
I'll go ahead and say that, we do have, when it comes to affordable housing, it is a crisis. And it is something that we're all paying attention to. And in the city of Miramar, we have stepped up as well, and we are using our ARPA dollars. We're using even general fund dollars to work on affordable housing. We currently have a home ownership plan that we're about to break ground on. But we know it's not sufficient, but we are tying those projects into where our transit buses are. We are paying attention to that, making sure that the infrastructure, whether it be our sidewalks, that our residents in those areas can get to it, because they need to afford, to be able to afford housing, and they need the transportation to get to work. So it is definitely something that we're focusing on in the city of Miramar. And I know it's something that, in terms of MPO, we are also looking at it and working with our partners to make sure that we address these issues.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, while George asked about transportation and housing, it's that third leg of the stool about jobs and the economy that really connect all three.
Sure.
So we're going to move on to our third poll question. Again, there's going to be 4 choices. So let me proceed. What do you think should be the highest priority for transportation funding? Press 1 for reducing congestion. Press 2 for improving safety. Press 3 for providing more options, such as transit, bicycle, and walking, or press 4 for other. And once again, if you're on Zoom, you would want to go on screen and select the appropriate answer. So once again, 1 is for reducing congestion, 2 is for improving safety, 3 for providing more options like transit and bicycling and walking, and 4 for others. I also want to once again remind the listeners and participants to visit www.route2050.org to learn more about the Broward MPO's 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the types of transportation projects and investments that we're talking about here tonight that are identified for the future. So next up, Steve, I guess it's your turn. Let me ask the next question. Why is expanding transportation options such a priority in a growing metropolitan area?
So I think providing those transportation options is a priority. My peers on the panel here touched on a couple of the reasons, right? Access to transit as an option. Other options, right? Bicycle and pedestrian. I think in order to provide the opportunities that match the housing and the connectivity to the transportation network, getting people to jobs, to school, to whatever it may be, it needs to be a balance of opportunity for them to at least have those options. So we're intricately involved in all those modes, either as a lead agency or a partner agency from a funding perspective. And it's trying to just balance those modes. And I use that term loosely because within those modes, they're obviously your choices that people at least have those opportunities.
Right. So, we were talking a bit before the hearing started about, I've been here for 40 plus years and I've seen the growth and the difference in transportation from what was principally a roadway car kind of community 30 or 40 years ago. And now with the built up nature of Broward County, not much green space. Monica, I guess I'll turn to you and see, how does the Broward County's footprint enter into this discussion.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Joe. We are living in an increasingly diverse world. And people's transportation needs are, vary significantly. So that's why it is truly important to have, different options and what we're offering for folks to get around. So, when we look at my, organization, and when I have, we have a big giant team that laser focused on making sure we're there for residents and what they need. So, we have a lot of public input. We seek out, and that's helping us to really form these multimodal, options that we've got. And certainly, like, as an example, we've got a pilot program that we recently implemented called Late Night Connect. And I'll just use that as an example of, listening to what folks are telling us they need. So that's a program we've got that in our, traditional, Broward County Transit, people used to think of it as just the buses, right? So this is an on-demand service that will help folks if you go to work on a shift and it's you either come onto the shift or you're leaving the shift when our bus service, our traditional bus service is no longer operating because it's the end of the day, the end of the evening, then that is a service that will allow us to get people to work, and then on demand, they can come back. And that was, a gap that we heard was there. People can get to work, but how do you get back, or vice versa? Because their shift hours conflict with our general operating bus service. So those are the types of things that we're doing. And we recognize that as the population is so diverse, their needs are diverse, and we need to listen. And so we're pivoting and offering some of these things. So that's as an example.
Wow. Okay. Commissioner Colburn, this next question, may be good for you, not only because of being chair of the MPO, but also your role as Commissioner Miramar near the Miami-Dade County line. And the question is, how do you consider or how do you plan for inter-county travel between Broward and Miami-Dade? I'm guessing that must be an issue specifically for Miramar as well as for Broward County.
You know what? We have a park and ride system, and we started that a number of years ago, right in our town center. And it actually became, it was used so much. It was like number one in the country at some point. This was before COVID. So that allowed our residents to be able to go to work in Miami-Dade County. And they actually loved the system. It was used so much. But it takes communication. This is a region, our residents travel back and forth. They want that regional aspect. So we have to work in partnership to make sure that we're addressing not just what's in Miami-Dade County, or not just what's in Broward or what's in city of Miramar, but we need to look at it as a regional area. And I think that's really what we're doing.
Steve.
Thank you. So, right, the what stands out to me, right, the average commuter that's commuting from Miami-Dade into Broward or vice versa, they're not looking at that county line saying, okay, my commute ends at the county line. So I think even in this long-range planning process, the regional model that's used to forecast travel demand based on population, employment, and so forth, actually is a regional model, right? It covers the Southeast Florida counties. So those type of things from a technical perspective obviously go into this planning process, but it's important in forums like this for the community at large to give feedback on, for example, the commissioner mentioned the park and ride express bus type service, right? That is a transportation choice, and it's really looking for those opportunities. If there's a park and ride that can be further enhanced, add more service there. So that's right from the traffic model saying, okay, there's a need. How do we address the need is really where I think the practitioners face that challenge. But the average trip doesn't stop at the county line.
Right.
It's obvious, but
Yeah, and that's a great example, Steve, also that, the county has, a big partnership with FDOT on, and for those out there in the public, it's FDOT. We love acronyms in government, but Florida Department of Transportation, big partner for us in those park and ride lots, and certainly with BCT Transit and with our municipalities where they're located and all that. It takes all of us to work in connection and collaboration in order to make those happen for the traveling public.
And one of those tremendous partnerships with the county and the Department of Transportation is the Broward Commuter Rail Project.
Yep.
And that within that project, right, addresses one of the primary points in that question. Miami-Dade is working on providing commuter rail on the FEC, Florida East Coast Rail Line, and the partnership with DOT and Broward County is very similar with the collaboration with Miami-Dade on extending that service up into the Fort Lauderdale area.
Right.
So that's a potential, right, future commuter rail project that would connect Aventura up to Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale International Airport, and south part of Fort Lauderdale.
Let me just one more time make a pitch for anyone who wants to ask a question. Please press 0 on your phone's keypad and you'll be transferred to a member of the staff, or if you're on Zoom, to please type the question in the Q&A panel. One other point, I guess, that I'd mentioned that I'm just aware of is the coordination between the MPOs here in Southeast Florida that started a few decades ago with CEFTEC, and how they get together quarterly to coordinate on regional plans, put together a regional transportation plan for the area.
Southeast Florida Transportation Council was basically made up of the 3 MPOs, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. I'm gonna throw another acronym at you, the Regional Transportation Plan, which is actually a summing of all 3 plans put together. So if you live south in Miami-Dade, south of the Snake Creek Canal, or north of the El Rio and Boca Raton and further north, we are actually stitching that together with our partner agencies and our sister counties, both Miami-Dade and Palm Beach. It's a really interesting predicament to actually try to solve.
Right, and that council, as Greg mentioned, right, it has elected officials on there, but there are also technical advisory groups made up of staff from the different agencies in those 3 counties that provide feedback on that regional network. And also I commend the 3 MPOs that Greg mentioned, right? Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. They do an annual Safe Street Summit too, really bringing in best practices from around the state, around the country, really just to look at that. So that collaboration towards safety, I think is replicated in the long range planning process through some of these long range plans too.
Good. I'm going to ask our 4th and final poll question for the evening. So, do you currently own, or are you thinking of purchasing a vehicle with self-driving capabilities? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 if not sure. Again, if you're on Zoom, you want to select your appropriate answer on the screen. So the question is, do you currently own, or are you thinking of purchasing a vehicle with self-driving capabilities? 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for not sure. So since we're kind of pivoting a bit with in talking about self-driving, and a few of you mentioned EV and different kinds of technology, what any thoughts on what might be kind of the most viable transportation technologies or new technologies that we may be seeing in the short term that could affect mobility or affect travel and travel choices?
I think, Joe, what pops out to me, right, connected and autonomous vehicles. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that technology in most vehicles now from a safety perspective, lane assist, things like that, right? So that is part of that technology that ultimately grows, depending on the manufacturer, to full autonomous. I'm not necessarily going to get into that, but I think when you look at the connectivity of those vehicles, the communication that they're able to receive from other vehicles, from infrastructure, incident management, right? Smart vehicles, right? We've seen smart TVs, we've got smartphones. These vehicles are constantly evolving. And I think that industry will focus on the points you mentioned. How do you make those vehicles safer, and yeah, I guess more user friendly, for lack of a better term. But I think it's important for us to at least understand where that technology could go in the future, especially in these long range plans.
And so, Joe, I'll jump in here if that's all right. So, it makes me, think about some of the, we think of AI and whatnot, but, really when you break it down into how do we interact with the built infrastructure that we've got. And so, these new technologies that we've got, where the county's been, we've got an innovation unit that we love to call the quote unquote county brain. And we challenge those really smart people to think about, how do you optimize mobility related data? And so we've got sensors that we're deploying so that we can talk and we can see how cars going down the street and how pedestrians walking across intersections, how are, oh goodness, I'm so sorry. How, and it's an emergency bypass, so my apologies. But how does everyone interact? So when you have a car going down the street and someone's crossing the street and they're maybe there's a near miss, how do you capture that? And so these sensors will allow in real time the ability to capture, pedestrian activity and interactions with vehicles. And so those are some of the things that we're analyzing so that we can see what is the best infrastructure that we should be putting in place that will to help us adapt to the physical environment that we live in.
Good.
Um,
Commissioner?
I can chime in.
Yes.
The city of Miramar, and MPO, we're looking into a digital twin, and many things, including the sensors and so forth, but the electrical vehicles, and really looking forward to see where is that different, all these innovative things, where is it going to land, so that we as MPO, we can go ahead and provide the infrastructure and the support system when the private industry decides which one is really going to take off. But I do think that there are definitely some great, it's a great look. It's a really exciting thing to think that we have autonomous vehicles, that we have some sort of a air traffic that will deliver things to us. It is really a bright future to be able to do those things, and we want to support it.
Great. So,
Right. The 2050 plan, right? So
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
as Commissioner
Right.
mentioned, right? Advanced air mobility. So it's important really through these planning efforts to think towards some of those initiatives. Maybe you can't necessarily plan for them in the next 10 years or immediate on the entire network, but on this horizon year, I think that is important. I just wanted to touch on technology. I think the panel, we touched on it a little bit with the connected vehicles, but a lot of people in the audience probably don't realize or understand the investment that's being made in the smart network that is out there today, as far as active traffic management, TSMNO, we love our acronyms, right? Transportation Systems Management and Operations. So Broward County and DOT District 4, we share office space. That's really a traffic management center. In real time, we've got people monitoring the traffic, able to adjust the traffic, incident management. A lot of that's the heartbeat of the network. But it also ties into one of the questions earlier on the constrained environment we're in. We need to optimize the throughput on the network we have. So through that type of technology, we're able to at least leverage technology and the partnerships towards getting the most out of the existing network where we can. But I thought it was an important point to make, where a lot of that information in real time, ultimately, I think can be sent out more effectively to emergency responders, as well as the general public driving.
And I think, Steve, the point you're making is such a good one, which is once again, from my perspective, years ago, transportation, you put a road out there and people drove it. Now, most of the mobility options take active management. It takes a staff like you have with the center there between the county and DOT to staff it and operate the system. So there is an O&M, a growing O&M component to managing the systems.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a large, traffic engineering division that works, like Steve said, co-located with us. But yeah, they're actively managing traffic signalization, and that's a real important part.
So let me see if I could sneak in one more question from Joy from Hallandale Beach. And it doesn't say DOT, but it's kind of written that way. What measures can transportation agencies, Steve, take to shorten the timeline between planning to construction?
There's a lot of measures. No joy in how they'll be.
I think we all do. Hi, Joy.
All right. So I think as long as I've been working DOT, I think we've looked for opportunities to be more efficient, trying to deliver projects. I think you touched on it in the opening. It's the timing of the resources being available and certain processes, right? We've taken measures to overlap the design phase with the project development phase. Yeah, things like that. But I think the biggest opportunity, which I'll tie into some of the theme this evening, I think is the relationships and the partnerships. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of several projects where perhaps the department had a project that was in our plan, through an MPO initiative, county or local municipality said, hey, we can bring some resources to the table to add something to that project and advance that to be done sooner. So I think looking for those opportunities, and I think challenging for myself, challenge our industry, the transportation industry, to say, let's look for innovative ideas. But I think the partnerships go a long way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's one of the themes of our town hall here this evening is the importance of the partnerships to deliver the program.
Collaboration. Honestly, we have examples all the time of the state working or having a project in queue. And the county or a city might have a project on that same stretch and area. And if we did not collaborate and communicate well, then they would finish theirs and we'd tear it right back up and work on ours. And that's the most inefficient use of resources we could ever do for the public. And so that's why it is critical for us to all communicate on a real-time basis and in our capital budgets and our future plans, and making sure that those are all integrated and we talk through those things.
Joe, today in the city of Miramar, we actually did a ribbon cutting to celebrate a pedestrian bridge. And this was part of the university mobility improvement. So this is a project that goes beyond the city of Miramar, but our stretch of it was completed. And, it was such a big deal for our city. And it's a project that started probably one of the first projects when I started here. So these projects takes a long time. And, I'm with Joy. If there's any way that we can, shorten that time would be wonderful. But I tell you, when they do come to fruition, it's really awesome for the community. I know that's our community is very excited today, and they will be excited being able to use that because it really addresses so many different areas of the transportation improvements.
So we're just about out of time. So if I'm going to ask 30 seconds or less, as transportation and agency leaders, what do you believe is in store for Broward and from transportation when you look to the year 2050 and beyond? 30 seconds. What do you see when you look in the beyond 2050?
I think just piggybacking on these points, I think the needs are out there, right? We had a laundry list of challenges. I think the partnerships, is the only way to get to that success. So I think leveraging those partnerships towards those projects is where we need to be tomorrow, all the way through 2050 and beyond.
Excellent. So we're going to lean on each other, right? Okay, so we're gonna have improved mobility. I see that in our future, enhanced economic development. We're gonna create jobs by all these projects that we're putting in place. While we're still having improved transportation safety, we've talked about that. Ensured environmental stewardship, which is top of our list as well. And overall, just strengthening the livability of our community. So those are the keys in everything that we do.
I think you're definitely going to see that. I think when it comes to partnership, it has been something that's been growing and growing tighter and tighter. We see that more regional, and definitely going to see more of that partnership as we move together to solve all these other things. Then one of the things that we haven't really spoke a lot about today is really the feedback that we need from our residents. I think that's one partner that's needed, and a E-Town hall like that gives a great opportunity for our residents to better understand the transportation network and provide a way for them to give input. So I will ask our listeners to please go on to route22050.org and please leave some comments, give some ideas. Please, we want to know your perspective.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great wrap up. So we knew this hour would pass quickly and it has. So once again, let me thank Steve Braun, District Secretary for Florida DOT District 4, Monica Sapero, Administrator here in Broward County, and Commissioner Yvette Colburn, Commissioner with City of Miramar, and also the Broward County Board Chair. And perhaps most importantly, thank you to all the listeners for participating here tonight. And as Commissioner Colburn just said, please go into route22050.org to not only learn more about the plan, but also to sign up and leave comments. So with that, I want to say thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.